Have you ever noticed that silence feels almost unbearable today? The moment we are left alone with our thoughts, even for just 30 seconds, we rush to grab our phones, scroll through social media, open a new tab, play music, or distract ourselves in some way. We call this boredom. We say, "I'm bored." But what if that isn't true? What if boredom doesn't actually exist the way we think it does? Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, gives us a radical perspective. You are not bored. You are simply addicted to stimulation. That changes everything, because the problem is not that life is empty. The problem is that we have trained our brains to expect constant excitement, constant dopamine, constant distraction, and when that stimulation disappears, we panic. So today, let's break this down. In this video, we're going to explore why we constantly run from boredom, what boredom actually means from Frankl's perspective, and how boredom, if embraced, can become a doorway to purpose, creativity, and freedom. Why we can't handle silence anymore. Think about your own habits. When you're waiting in line at a store, what do? Most people instantly pull out their phones. When the Wi-Fi cuts off, or when the video you're watching starts buffering, you feel restless. Even while walking outside, many people cannot walk without earphones, without music, without some form of stimulation. This is not just a coincidence. Our brains are wired for dopamine, the chemical of anticipation and reward. Social media, entertainment, notifications, and even endless news feeds keep feeding us microdoses of dopamine. Over time, we get hooked. It's exactly like an addiction. The more we consume, the more we need. The baseline of what feels normal rises higher and higher. So when nothing exciting is happening, the brain feels starved, and that's when we say, "I'm bored." But Viktor Frankl would challenge us here. He would say, boredom isn't really about emptiness. It's about our inability to face silence, to face ourselves, to sit in that uncomfortable gap where no stimulation is coming in. Frankl's background. Why listen to Frankl at all? Because he lived through one of the harshest realities of human history, the Nazi concentration camps during World War II. In those camps, there was no entertainment, no distraction, no luxury. Days stretched endlessly, filled with suffering, silence, and pain. Yet Frankl did not go insane. Instead, he discovered that even in emptiness, even in suffering, life was still asking something of him. From this experience, he developed his philosophy called logotherapy, the therapy of meaning. According to Frankl, human beings don't survive by pleasure alone, and not by power alone, but by meaning. When life feels boring or empty, it's actually a signal, a question being asked of us. What boredom really is. Let's reframe boredom. Instead of thinking of boredom as nothing is happening, what if we thought of it as I am being asked to notice something deeper? Think of boredom as a mirror. When you're bored, you suddenly notice the restless craving of your mind. You notice how uncomfortable silence feels. You notice how addicted you've become to being entertained. Frankl would say this is not a problem. This is an opportunity, because the space of boredom is actually the space where meaning can enter. Remember his famous line, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." Boredom is exactly that kind of space. It's an opening. It's the moment where you can choose. Do you run back to shallow distractions? Or do you pause, reflect, and listen to what life is really asking of you? Why overstimulation is dangerous. Now let's talk about the cost of overstimulation. When every moment is filled with noise, notifications, videos, games, gossip, several things happen. Creativity dies. Great ideas often come from silence, from daydreaming, from letting the mind wander. If you never give your brain space to breathe, your creativity dries up. You avoid your inner truth. Silence can be scary because in silence, the real questions of life surface. Am I living the way I want to live? Am I becoming the person I should be? Most people drown these questions with distraction. Life becomes shallow. If you are living only for the next little hit of dopamine, the next reel, the next like, the next funny video, then you never face the deeper search for meaning. And without meaning, life feels hollow. Frankl warned about this. He said that the greatest danger in modern society is not physical suffering, but the feeling of emptiness and meaninglessness. And overstimulation is the perfect recipe for that emptiness, because it keeps us entertained, but never fulfilled. Closing part 1. So let's pause here. If you're watching this, maybe you've already noticed how restless you feel when you tried to sit quietly, or when you put your phone away. Maybe you've realized how hard it is to focus without constant distraction. That's not boredom, that's addiction. And in recognizing this addiction, you've already taken the first step. In the next part, we'll go deeper. We'll explore how boredom is not just emptiness, but a doorway. We'll talk about how Frankl saw boredom as an invitation to meaning, to purpose, and to freedom. The hidden space inside boredom. Let's return to Viktor Frankl's insight. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Boredom is that space. It's a pause, a gap, a silence. And in that silence, we face a choice. Do we numb ourselves with endless stimulation? Or do we step into the discomfort and discover something deeper? You see, boredom is not a sign that life is empty. It's a sign that your inner world is knocking on your door. It's life saying, pay attention, listen. Something inside you is waiting to be discovered. But most of us slam that door shut with distractions. Example, the traffic jam. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. The car isn't moving. Most people instantly grab their phones, scroll through feeds, or start complaining. But what if you didn't? What if, instead, you just sat there? You noticed your thoughts. You reflected on your life. Maybe you'd remember something important, a dream you've been postponing, a person you've been neglecting, a small idea that could change your future. That is the gift hidden inside boredom. It reveals the thoughts and questions we've been avoiding. Why we run from silence, but why is it so hard? Why does silence feel so unbearable? Because silence forces us to confront the truth. When you strip away stimulation, what's left? Your own mind, your own unresolved questions, your own doubts, fears, and desires. Many people don't want to face that. It's easier to stay distracted. It's easier to scroll. It's easier to binge watch. Because if you sit in silence, you might have to admit that you're unhappy in your career, that your relationship is falling apart, that you've been ignoring your health, or that you don't know what your purpose really is. Silence is like a mirror, and most people are afraid of what they'll see. Frankl's perspective. Frankl, who survived unimaginable suffering in the concentration camps, had to live with silence, emptiness, and despair every single day. But instead of being destroyed by it, he discovered a key truth. Life is never meaningless. Life is always asking you a question, and it is your responsibility to answer it. This is the heart of logotherapy. According to Frankl, when you feel empty or bored, it isn't a void. It's a question. It's life asking, what will you do with this moment? The invitation inside boredom. Think of boredom as an invitation to go deeper. When you feel bored, maybe life is inviting you to create something instead of consuming. Maybe life is inviting you to reflect instead of distracting yourself. Maybe life is inviting you to confront the truth you've been running from. Frankl said meaning is not something we invent. It is something we discover. And boredom is often the space where that discovery begins. The danger of escaping boredom. But when we constantly escape boredom, several things happen. We weaken our mental muscles. Just like physical muscles get stronger with resistance, the mind gets stronger when it learns to sit in discomfort. Escaping boredom weakens us. We miss our deeper calling. If we always drown out silence, we never hear this subtle voice inside us. The voice that says, you were meant to do more than this. You were meant to grow. We settle for shallow pleasures. Without meaning, we become slaves to dopamine chasing likes, views, gossip, or entertainment. life becomes a cycle of craving and consumption, but never true fulfillment. Frankl warned about this when he wrote about the existential vacuum, the feeling of emptiness that people in modern society often feel. We fill it with pleasure, consumption, and distractions, but the real hunger is for meaning. Story: The Empty Afternoon. Let me tell you a small story. Imagine a man who always fills his afternoons with TV, social media, and constant busyness. One day, there's a power outage, no TV, no internet, no phone battery. Suddenly, he is left in silence. At first, he feels restless. His hands twitch. His brain screams, "Do something." But as the minutes pass, something strange happens. He notices the sound of birds outside his window. He remembers a book he once wanted to write. He feels a deep longing to call an old friend he hasn't spoken to in years. That empty afternoon becomes a turning point. Why? Because he finally faced his boredom instead of escaping it. This is what Frankl meant. Boredom is a doorway. If you dare to walk through it, you find meaning. Reframing boredom. So let's reframe it. Boredom is not nothing is happening. Boredom is something important is trying to happen. But I need to listen. It's like soil. When you look at plain soil, it seems empty, but hidden inside are seeds, waiting to grow. If you keep pouring concrete over it, distractions, entertainment, constant noise, nothing will ever sprout. But if you give it space and silence, life emerges. That's exactly what boredom is, soil for your soul. Closing part 2. So now we've seen boredom differently. It's not your enemy. It's an invitation. It's a mirror. It's a space where life asks you, what will you do? Who will you become? But recognizing this is not enough. We need practical ways to transform boredom into freedom, into creativity, into growth. That's what we'll explore in the next part. We'll look at Frankl's tools, his practical wisdom, and the steps you can take to break your addiction to stimulation and rediscover the power of silence. Now that we have understood why we are addicted to stimulation and how it is shaping our minds, it's time to talk about the practical steps we can take to break free. Addiction to stimulation is not like quitting smoking or alcohol. It's more subtle. You can't completely stop using your phone, you can't avoid work emails, and you can't live in total silence all the time. The goal is not to escape the world, but to create balance and regain control over your attention. So let's go step by step. 1. Reclaiming your attention. The very first step is to become conscious of your attention. Most of us don't even realize how distracted we are. Viktor Frankl said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Think about that carefully. When your phone pings with a notification, you have two choices: instantly react, or pause and decide if it's worth your time. That pause is freedom. That pause is power. Action. Step: turn off unnecessary notifications. Put your phone away when working or eating. Set aside tech-free hours in your day. These small actions may look insignificant, but over time, they rewire your brain to stop craving constant stimulation. 2. Practicing boredom deliberately. This might sound strange, but one of the best ways to fight stimulation addiction is to practice being bored. When was the last time you sat in silence without music, without scrolling, without any form of entertainment? Probably a long time ago. Here's why boredom matters. Boredom is the doorway to creativity. Every great invention, every meaningful piece of art, every breakthrough in philosophy or science came because someone was able to sit with their thoughts. So try this experiment. Spend 10 minutes a day doing absolutely nothing. No phone, no book, no TV. Just sit. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, but gradually, your mind will learn to settle. You'll notice your thoughts more clearly, and you may even get insights you never had before. 3. Replacing empty stimulation with meaningful engagement. Here's a key idea. You can't simply remove stimulation. You have to replace it with something deeper. Otherwise, you'll always relapse into distraction. So what can you replace it with? reading books instead of scrolling endless feeds, deep conversations instead of shallow small talk online, creative work, writing, art, building something instead of passive consumption, nature walks instead of endless Netflix binges. The point is to feed your mind with something that nourishes your soul instead of numbing it. 4. Viktor Frankl's Formula for Meaning. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, said that true fulfillment comes from 3 sources: work or creative expression, doing something that matters, creating, contributing, love and relationships, experiencing meaning through human connection, courage during suffering, how we face hardship, pain, and challenges. Notice what's missing here: stimulation, entertainment, endless scrolling. Dopamine hits, none of these create meaning. They only distract us from the emptiness inside. When you align your life with these 3 sources of meaning, the addiction to stimulation loses its grip, because now, you're not just chasing excitement, you're living with purpose. 5. Practical daily rituals. To put all of this together, here are simple rituals you can add to your life. Morning silence. Start your day with 10 minutes of silence before checking your phone. Single tasking. Choose one task. Focus on it deeply. Finish it. No multitasking. Gratitude journaling. Write down 3 things you are grateful for every evening. Digital Sabbath. Once a week, spend a whole day away from screens. Meaning check-in. Every night, ask yourself, did I live with meaning today? Or did I only chase stimulation? These rituals will help you regain clarity and direction. Closing message: you see, you're not bored, you're just addicted to stimulation. True boredom doesn't even exist when you have a meaningful life. Frankl taught us that even in the darkest circumstances, meaning can be found. And if he could discover purpose in a concentration camp, then surely we can discover it in our modern, comfortable lives. So the next time you feel restless, instead of reaching for your phone or opening another tab, pause, ask yourself, am I chasing stimulation or am I choosing meaning? That single question can change your life. Remember, life is not about escaping boredom, it's about building a life so full of meaning that boredom has no place left to stay.